What is the best way to sharpen your knives? Are there techniques that work better than others? There are some techniques and some sharpeners that might give you a great edge on certain knives, but might actually damage other types of knives, potentially expensive ones. What sorts of things do you need to maintain your knives and keep them from rusting? How do you disassemble all these complicated knives and put them back together? What do you do if a knife rusts? If you've ever wondered about any of this stuff, you are in luck. I am starting my first membership to this channel. It's going to be a Knife Care Masterclass membership. Every month, I'm going to go into a new topic or a new technique or a new how-to video on knife care and knife maintenance. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to cover all sorts of things on how you protect your expensive investment in all these knives and how to get them to perform and last their best. The rest of this video, I'm going to give you a sample. So this is a video that I already filmed a while back. This is an example of the sort of high-level disassembly, maintenance, etc. that I'm going to be offering on the membership. Keep watching. Knives Sports Adventures here. So today what I'm doing is a video that I've actually had a couple of different requests for, which is not a disassembly video, but a reassembly video of the Benchmade Shootout OTF knife. These are notoriously kind of difficult to get back together, so today I'm going to reassemble this one and show you how to do it safely and without mishap. So one of the things that I will recommend that is very important before you disassemble your knife, if you haven't already, put the knife and your hands inside of a plastic bag like this to disassemble it, particularly when you take the two halves of the knife apart, because there are these two little tiny springs on the locking mechanisms that like to spring out across the universe and become lost forever. So don't do that. If you haven't disassembled it, go back, do that first, then disassemble it. Okay, so the first thing for the reassembly is the spring mechanism here. This goes in the left-hand half of the knife as it's facing away from you, so that the little tab there can stick up into the trigger mechanism. Next thing to go in is the blade and middle support assembly. This kind of goes in together with these two little locks. So we'll reassemble this first, and then we'll talk about the locks. So blade goes on here, like so. This piece goes on top and it locks into the blade with those two little pegs. That's what keeps the blade aligned as it's sliding in and out of the knife. And the bolt goes on this side. That's a T10 bolt. So everything has to line up just right for it to click together. And then you can tighten the bolt into the little insert on the other side of the blade. So once you're done with it, like once you get it tight, make sure the blade slides freely and make sure everything sits tightly together, because if the blade doesn't slide freely, obviously the knife won't pop out. That can be very tight. Blade should still slide freely, so we're good there. Here is the mechanism. You have to be very careful with this. So when you're putting the locking plates in, the side with the short side, where it has that little step off, that goes toward the left side of the knife where it's down, because this little notch is what the sliding plate catches when it locks and unlocks the knife. So this needs to be in the middle, so it's not all the way to one side or the other, so it's kind of in the middle there so you're not tripping a lock. This goes in like this. I'm going to keep the blade in the center of those two locks. My inserts for my bolts are already in the knife on this side. That will help this stay in once I put it in. So I'm going to click that onto the inserts like so. All right, all four. You'll notice my glass breaker was already in there, and then I'm going to get the locks in. So this is where you have to be very careful, because these like to spring away from you. So this is going to go inside the hole in the lock plate. And this is where it gets very difficult, because you got to slide the lock plate in here and then you have to compress the spring enough down into that hole that the lock plate will slide in, and there's very little room for it to go. It has to go in kind of at a perfect 90-degree angle this way, and then that gets popped down in there like that. Be very careful, hold that in there, because if it pops out, you're going to lose it. Same thing on this one. It's got that little hole there, that triangular shaped hole. Short side goes in first. Short side goes up toward the middle of the knife. Lock plate, holding the spring in with my fingernail like so. Slide the lock plate in until it clicks, and there you go. So there's your two springs in there. Then you got the trigger that has to go on. So trigger has to go over top of the little protrusion that sticks up there. That goes in the trigger hole as the trigger slides into it, kind of like this, down in there to catch it, like so. And then you can put the other side of the knife on. So carefully get it on there. Don't dislodge those two little lock plates. Get it snapped in over the trigger plate like that, and then you can hold it together like this while you put your bolts in. There are the bolts. There are 4, 1 per corner. T6 bolts that go in like so. I'm just going to put them in finger tight here first, and then I'll tighten them all the way. The main problem is just getting those little lock springs back in there. That's the tough part of the whole assembly process of this knife, and really with just about any OTF knife. They all have those little spring lock mechanisms, the double action ones, and that's the tough part because they tend to want to get away from you. There's the 4th bolt. And then now that I got them snugged, I'll tighten them all up. And then if everything's done right, you should be able to lock that knife out, and it should go in and out just fine. So that is how you reassemble your Benchmade Shootout.